Hello, my name is Kamari Darrington, and I'm a sports fanatic. The people that know me will tell you that my life has revolved around sports from the very start. In fact, I now make a living covering them. From the TV to the stands, from the sidelines to the press box, I've watched sports from every possible angle. Now I share the stories that have shaped my fandom. Welcome to this edition of the My Life as a Sports Fanatic podcast. I'm Kamari Darrington, and in this episode, I'll tell you about a little trip to a town called Harrison, Arkansas, a town that was once named the most racist town in America. Now, I knew my start in sports media would include visits to some very small locales. Living in Alabama during the high school football season, you can end up watching a game in Millbrook or Helena or Cecil. Every state has these small towns which close their doors early and can't be found on any major map. I started my play-by-play broadcasting career in one of those towns in Alabama. I did a Dixie Youth Baseball State Tournament in Enterprise back in 2016. The Enterprise is located in the southeastern part of Alabama next to Ozark. I called 7 games there and really enjoyed them. That was my first assignment for Jock Job Sports, a company I still work with to this day. Now, it would be almost 2 years before my next assignment with them. Chuck Sebastian, one of the Jock Job broadcasters and coordinators, asked me if I'd ever done play-by-play for basketball. Well, I just completed my second tour as the announcer for the live stream of the Southern States Athletic Conference Basketball Championships. Southern States Athletic Conference is an NAIA conference. And this assignment would be my biggest one yet. I was going to be the play-by-play broadcaster for the Junior College Division II Women's National Basketball Championship. My first national championship. Wow. I mean, this was a big honor for me, especially early on in my career because I had just really gotten started and really the only thing I had done was basketball. I hadn't really done a whole lot outside of basketball and baseball or softball. So this was a big deal for me. And I was so excited when I got the schedule for the tournament. It would feature up to 6 games on each of the 5 days. In all, Chuck and I would be the voices for 26 games, culminating with the national title game. And I studied as much as I could about each team. I felt that when I arrived, I'd be ready for the tournament. And I needed to be ready because there were 16 teams that were vying for the championship, and all 16 teams really earned their way to be there. And I wanted to be the best possible, most prepared as possible for these games because a lot of people were going to be watching these games all over the country, and people that were fans of basketball were going to be watching. So you never know who watches. That's one of the first things that I learned in broadcasting. So you never know who's listening or watching you, so you always want to be your best prepared. So then I found out that the tournament would take place in a town called Harrison, Arkansas. And to prepare myself for a 9-hour drive that would take me through the states of Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Then I had to do my research on my future temporary home, and what I found out was pretty stunning. Harrison is a town in northwest Arkansas with a population of less than 15,000. It's home to the general office of FedEx Freight. It's also home to the nation's first ever national river. It's also a town that has a bad history with racism. At the start of the 20th century, it was the site of 2 race riots where whites drove the very small black population out of the city. Just outside of Harrison, in the town known as Zinc, a man founded the party which would become the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Harrison was also known as a sundown town, meaning that town that blacks should avoid being out at during the nighttime. And I also found out that it housed a terrestrial radio station known as White Power Radio. In fact, the billboard is situated just outside the Harrison city limits. The town has such a horrible racial history that the Southern Poverty Law Center once named Harrison the most racist town in America back in 2014. Even as a black man, I had never really experienced racism in my life to that point, at least not overtly. I know about America's history with race and how it affects us today. Sure, I'd watched movies like Roots and A Time to Kill and Rosebud, but I never thought that I'd be going to one of the towns that could have easily been the backdrop for one of these films. Now, what would I encounter? Who would I encounter? Would I be able to enter the arena at North Arkansas College without any major issues? I mean, should I even go? According to the census as of 2020, the town demographics, 88% white, less than 1% black. In terms of total numbers, barely 50 people lived in Harrison. Now, at the time, I was working with the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper, and when I looked up the city with my sports editor, I started to worry. I had told my wife about the city and the past that it has gone through, and we began to pray about it before going. And I thought that maybe staying near a college campus, maybe minds would be a little bit more open. Well, Harrison was hosting a basketball tournament. Majority of the players and the coaches would be black. Broadcast crew, other than myself and Chuck, that were going to be mostly black. So maybe this trip wouldn't be so bad after all. As a response to the moniker, citizens and lawmakers created a task force focused on inclusion and diversity in an effort to reconcile the city's past with the present. So at the time I was thinking, well, maybe things have been a little bit different within 4 years. So I got my car and drove to Harrison. The South is full of beautiful terrain, but the final hour leading up to finding the hotel in Harrison was rural, dark, and bleak. Houses were busted up, trees were dying, the ground had very little grass. I saw that White Power radio sign, and I thought people actually listened to the station 24 hours a day. We stayed in a part of town that had a few restaurants, and a general store was the only business open past 10 o'clock. So the broadcast crew decided to go to a buffet restaurant our first night together, getting ready to work this 5-day tournament. And we all got in line, got in food, sat down. So there was 4 black people, and of course Chuck was white. We got engaged in conversation, and we noticed certain people at another table staring at us. So I went back to talking and looked up again and got some icy stares from a group wearing black jackets at a nearby table. Now, they just looked, as if they've never seen black people before. Nobody approached us. And as we left, most of the people just smiled and waved. That was the only night I felt any tension in a public space. Now, the tournament was awesome. Hospitality all week was great. We were fed very well. The ladies that cooked the food even brought it to us during games that they were going on that we couldn't get to the back. The best game was one of the 2 national semifinals between Highland and Kirkwood. Highland was ranked second and came in the game with a perfect 33-0 record. Kirkwood, the defending national champion and ranked number 3, came into the game on a 23-game win streak. The back-and-forth battle came down to a final shot, and Kirkwood won the game 77-74, eventually losing in the national championship game to number 1 Monroe. But my most memorable moment during that tournament wasn't during the game. It took place one day before the morning session of games. It was day 3, and we'd come down to get the starting lineups. And today, this older lady sat down near me as I was waiting on the starting lineups and asked if she could talk to me for a moment. And she was very emotional. She told me that the town she lived in most of her life had a reputation that was hard to overcome. She said there were people working to change that, and she hoped that one day people from all walks of life could find Harrison a great place to live. And I told her about everyone being so nice to us during the week, and definitely didn't experience anything bad during our time. And I told her that we had more conversations like that, more people could come together and make Harrison, Arkansas a better place. At least for a week, Harrison, Arkansas really wasn't all that bad after all. One of the things that you learn as you go up and down the highways is that depending on the type of people that you be around, you get a different perspective on certain things. Knowing that I'll have to visit some of these towns at some point, safety is number 1, but most importantly, keeping an open mind is number 1 as well. And most of the people in Harrison, Arkansas that we encountered that week had an open mind, especially that lady. That moment really touched me in a way that I didn't think it would at the time. But it's something I'll never forget when she sat down and started talking to me. Because I felt that weight coming into the town. And then just enjoying the tournament by itself. The tournament was just so great that we forgot about all that. And the people forgot about all that. We met some outstanding people, saw some great basketball. And at the end of the day, it was just 1 week in the most racist town in America. Maybe that moniker was earned in a different way back in the day. I don't know what they would say nowadays about Harrison, Arkansas, and I don't know if much has changed since we left. But what I do know is that you can never judge a book by its cover. Certainly, Harrison, Arkansas has a long way to go. But at least for a week, people came together and had a good time. And I left Harrison. I saw that White Power Radio billboard one more time. And I said to myself, these towns are part of what makes sports great. I haven't been back since, so I hope that maybe there was a small chance that this town could start to turn it around. I also thought that I couldn't wait for my next assignment. And that's it for this episode of My Life as a Sports Fanatic. Make sure you subscribe to get notifications on new episodes. I know it's been a while, but I'm hoping to have a better schedule now that football and basketball seasons or the overlap is going to end. So I'll be coming up with some more new episodes. In fact, in a couple of weeks, in the next episode, I'll tell you about my experiences at Miami's Old Orange Bowl. Mainly the comeback versus Florida in 2003. My first introduction to the Orange Bowl. You can listen to the podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.